Jacob. He had really big feet.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. We are so happy to have Jessica here today to talk about her sweet little Jacob. She is actually coming all the way from the UK, and so we're grateful to have a little bit more of international representation today. So thank you, Jessica, for coming on and chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity. Thank you for letting me share Jacob's story.
Oh, we're so pleased to be able to do that. So tell us actually a little bit about yourself, Jessica. What does your family look like right now, and where approximately are you guys located, and what do you do for a living, or what do you like to do in your spare time and all that jazz?
Yeah, so we live in London, the UK. It's me and my husband. We've been together for 13 years now. Married, no, sorry, 12 years. Married for 3.
Uh-huh.
So I'm originally from London. Well, my background is my parents are Polish, so both born in Poland, and they moved here, had me, and it's just me. I'm an only child, and the rest of the family are all in Poland.
Do you speak Polish then?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband, he's an army kid. Well, Royal Air Force kid. So he kind of moved around England and abroad. So he lived in Europe, different countries as well. And his family are spread all over.
So fun. And then did you guys just meet in London?
So no, we met at university, so in Manchester. So that was that. So we met 13 years ago, been together for 12. So yeah, we then moved to London. That's where he got a job and where my parents were. And yeah, this is where we've decided to settle down.
Oh, good.
And it's near my parents, so they only live half an hour away. So
so
that
nice.
was important for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And his parents, are they still back in Manchester, or are they still
No,
about?
So his parents, one is in Belgium and the mum's in Sheffield, so up north.
Oh, okay.
Near Manchester.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And what do you guys like to do in your spare time and hobbies and such?
So I guess we love to go for walks. We got a new puppy. She's only 6 months old, so we're going on lots of walks recently.
Oh yeah.
We like to go cinema, go out to eat food, socializing with friends and family. And I guess my hobby is sort of arts and crafts stuff. I love making things and sort of photo albums. I love doing stuff like that.
That's great. How fun.
And Jake loves barbecuing.
Oh, does he? You gotta Lee, he and Lee need to talk, because I was like, we talked earlier that Manchester United was a common bond there. And then I was like, barbecue. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They might get along just fine.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so it is just you and your husband at the time of Jacob's birth. Is that right? So Jacob was your first.
Yes. So we'd been together, I guess, how many years? So last year we'd been together for about 12 years. Sorry. No, we've been together for 11 years, and we decided it was time to start trying for a baby.
Yeah.
We started trying and got pregnant first month. We were shocked. We didn't realize it could happen that quick, and felt very lucky because it could have not been like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So not as well, so a little bit of a surprise, but planned. Like
Yeah,
just
planned, yeah. But yeah, we're expecting to be trying for 6 to 12 months. So when it happened straight away, I guess I was shocked and nervous. Jake, my husband, was just really excited straight away.
yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. It is always kind of a delight, but then also like, oh no, like we're
Yeah,
like really pregnant now.
yeah, yeah. We still hadn't bought a place. So as soon as we got pregnant, we were like, okay, now is the time to
It's time.
really go and buy a house. So that's what we were doing in the
That's
early pregnancy.
that's so fun. And then so when you found out, was it kind of just like, oh, my period is not, I missed my period. I'm gonna just
Yeah,
pee on a stick kind of thing?
yeah. So my period was about a week late. My periods were never that regular. They were
Hmm.
always between 4 and 5 weeks. It wasn't sort of uh you know I had an exact cycle day. So I was about a week late, and I really wasn't expecting it. I decided I'd do a pregnancy test on day 7,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was just positive. So I then woke Jake up, and well, I wrapped the pregnancy test in a little box and wrapped it up and gave it to him as a present. And then I wrote, "I'm pregnant" on my belly and woke him up like that.
How fun. And he was so excited, I'm sure.
Yeah, straight away he was so excited. Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. So, I am not totally sure how the healthcare system works in the UK. So, do they recommend going in at a certain point in time? Do they do ultrasounds and all that kind of early on, or do they ask you to kind of wait?
So you contact the hospital you'd like to be seen at,
Mm-hmm.
and you self-refer yourself, and then you're seen by a midwife around 8 weeks.
Okay.
So then they take a full history, see if there's any risk factors, and you would then have your first scan at 12 weeks.
Okay. Okay. So
So
eight
you
weeks and then
wouldn't have
12
an
weeks.
early scan unless you paid for it, or if you had a history of loss or some other issues.
Gotcha. Okay. So, at that 8-week appointment, did you go in and see a midwife? How did everything look
Yeah,
then?
yeah. So everything looked fine. Everything was really low risk. They weren't worried at all about anything. So yeah, I mean, those first 12 weeks, I was really aware of miscarriage being quite
Mm.
high in that 12 weeks. So I was almost expecting it, because I knew it was quite common. For some reason, I was just anxious that whole 12 weeks that we would lose the baby. But then at 12 weeks, when we actually saw the baby and there was a heartbeat, then my nerves just settled. I thought, okay, this is it. There's going to be a baby.
Yeah,
I had no
maybe.
idea anything could go wrong, really.
Yeah. And how were you feeling throughout that first kind of trimester time?
So until about 7 to 8 weeks, I had pretty much no symptoms. So I
Hmm.
thought, I'm not pregnant. But then around 8 weeks, I started having a bit of nausea,
Mm.
uh, extreme tiredness, extreme hunger, and yeah, just general bloatedness. So
Y-
that kind of confirmed that I'm pregnant.
yeah, you're like, okay, I guess so.
Yeah, but none of the symptoms were too severe. The nausea was manageable. I think only 2 days I had to take off work that I
Mm.
couldn't stand.
Yeah.
Generally, I was okay.
Oh, good. That's always nice to have that little bit of like, oh, some people just throw up the entire time of their pregnancy. I
Yeah.
was like, that would be miserable. So,
How do they work?
exactly. Yeah. Okay. So you got to see the baby at 12 weeks of the scan. Was Jake there at that? Was he able to
Yeah,
come? I'm just not sure how that
yeah.
looked.
So it was summer of 2021. So yeah, things were quite settled down around COVID by then. So yeah, he was allowed into the scans and everything.
Yes. And I just realized I usually do this. So I apologize. So can we get some reference of when Jacob was born?
So Jacob was born in December 2021. So that's about 10 months away. In 2 days, it will be 10 months exactly.
Yeah, at the time of this recording. So everybody, Jessica is very new, and I was like surprised that she reached out to us, but I'm glad that we could capture his story. So thank you so much for that little reference point. Okay, so you guys were able to see Jacob on the scan, and he looked good. You saw his heartbeat, and you felt really kind of relieved, like you'd kind of
Yeah,
passed that milestone.
yeah, exactly. We felt confident that everything was okay, and we started telling people around then as well. We told
Mm.
my parents a few weeks earlier because I was going away with them for a weekend, so I knew I wouldn't be able to hide not having a drink.
Yeah. Yes.
So I had
Exactly.
to tell them. And then after 12 weeks, we told everyone.
Awesome. I'm sure everybody was overjoyed. I think that's so fun. Okay, and then so after 12 weeks then you're going along. I'm actually curious, did you guys have any plans on finding out if it was a boy or a girl, or if and did you guys have a list of running names, that type of thing?
Yeah, so we were going to find out what we were having, and so that was the 20-week scan
Mhm.
actually.
Mhm.
Found out, but actually from the moment we found out we were pregnant, we thought it was a girl. For some reason, we just both thought it was going to be a girl, but then turned out it was a boy.
Surprise.
Yeah, so we had quite a few names for girls, but not so many for boys. We couldn't agree on many boys' names.
Boy names are
But
hard.
yeah, but Jacob we both liked.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
we went with it.
that's so great.
Yeah,
Is it
we chose the name pretty much the day we found out he was a boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're like, "That's it." Is there a family significance then to it just because
No, it was just really the only boy name that we both agreed on.
that is a good enough reason right there.
I've loved the name for years, and also it translates really nicely into Polish. It's
Mm.
Jakub,
Mhm.
and then it's actually sweetened in Polish to Kubuś, which is really cute, I thought. And also Kubuś is Winnie the Pooh in Polish, so I always associate Jacob with Winnie the Pooh now.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, I love that so much.
Mhm.
Okay, so then, so at the 20-week scan, Jake was able to come with you, I'm assuming, for that one as well. You wanted to find out, awesome, which is great. How did the rest of the scan go? Like, was there anything that they brought up, any concerns that they had at all about him, his anatomy, anything about your placenta? Did everything look good?
Yeah, everything looked absolutely fine. No worries at all. So that would have been the last scan that I would have been offered during the pregnancy because everything was so fine, low risk and normal.
Yeah. Isn't that? Yeah. Okay. Everything is normal. You're looking
Mm.
great. And um, how was the rest of the, like, let's talk about, so after 20 weeks, then tell me how, like, everything else kind of progressed. Like, you were going in monthly, or how was that looking as time went on from that point?
So then it was just so in England the care is just midwife led
Hmm.
if you're low risk. So for the rest of the pregnancy, I was just seeing a midwife. So at 25 weeks, I think, and then at 28 weeks, I had a
Mm.
midwife appointment. And yeah, they sort of measured the belly. Everything was always fine in blood tests and urine samples. So yeah, just no problems at all
And
ever.
how were you feeling? Were you feeling pretty decently?
Yeah, yeah. I think the nausea lasted to about week 15 or 16, and
Hmm.
then I was absolutely fine. I had a bit of backache. The midwife said it's that because I was running at the time. Well, once a week I went for a little jog. She said
Hmm.
maybe stop that now, because it could be causing it to be worse. But other than that, yeah, I was fine, felt fine.
Okay, and then so you saw the midwife at 25 weeks, 28 weeks, and then kind of walk me through what happened after those appointments.
Yeah, so then it got to about 20, I was about 29 weeks. it was really 2 weeks before I was due to go on maternity leave.
Mm.
So basically, just as reference, I'm a dentist, and so I was working full time at the time. It's a patient-facing role, so I was a bit worried about COVID at the time,
Right.
and I did inquire with head office whether I could be off during the pregnancy, because I knew the year earlier pregnant women didn't have to work in patient-facing roles.
Okay.
But at the time I was pregnant, that wasn't the case anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So society, the government, everything was pretty, they were quite relaxed around COVID by then, I think.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the only way to be off was to go on maternity early. So I planned to finish working about 2 months before Jacob was due.
Okay.
And so then less than 2 weeks before I was meant to start maternity, I caught COVID.
Oh.
And yeah, and well, it was because I was taking a test twice a week, the lateral flow tests,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and just one of them came back positive, and I only had sort of tiredness that day of the test, so I didn't expect it to be COVID at all. But then later on the symptoms did develop, but they were always quite mild. I did lose my sense of smell and taste. I had a fever for about 2 days, but I was functional, not bedbound. I
Mm-hmm.
felt fine generally. So yeah, I was around 29 weeks then, and I was isolating for 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
And the day after I finished my isolation, I needed to get out, go for a walk. I had enough of being indoors,
Yes.
and just went to a cafe, sat down with a chai latte, and was reading my book. And I just realized that I wasn't feeling Jacob as much. I was feeling him, but
Mm-hmm.
his movements just weren't as strong. But it didn't worry me too much, because he had sort of active days, quiet days. About a month or two earlier, I had the same sort of little mini wave of panic of, oh, I haven't felt him much. But then everything was fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that day I guess I just was more aware of his movements, so I was really monitoring them, and they never got that active that day. Yeah, I just went for a little walk near where we live, and I'll always remember that walk. It's one of my last walks with Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that day I went back home. It was a Saturday, and my husband was going to go out for a little Christmas party / birthday, and I decided to stay home because I didn't want to still be infecting people, just in case.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that evening was fine. Like I still felt the odd movement. It never got too he never got too active. And that night, Jake came home around midnight, 1 a.m., and I felt Jacob kick, and so I felt reassured and fell asleep. But I now know that kick was my last kick that I felt. So,
Sorry.
so I believe that Jacob was waiting for his daddy to come home and give him one last kick.
I'm so sorry. The next morning, did you wake up and tell me how
Yeah, so
that was?
the next morning I woke up. I actually that morning had planned a virtual baby shower for my friend who lives in Australia. So that was at 9:30 in the morning. So I got out of bed. I didn't feel him, but I mean, I I didn't always feel him in the morning, or didn't always notice him in the mornings, because
Mm-hmm.
I'd just get up, get ready, go to work. So I thought it's okay, I've just not felt him yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this virtual baby shower. It lasted about 2-3 hours. And after, I still didn't feel him. So I told Jake, and we Googled it, and we looked up what to do, and it said to do some jumping jacks, have something to drink that's sweet or cold. So we tried all that. Jake even put his ear to my belly, because previously he thought he had heard a heartbeat. I don't know if that's possible. I mean, they say Dopplers aren't the best to
Yeah.
use to
Yeah.
reassure. So yeah, I mean, he couldn't hear anything, and so that's when we called the hospital, and they said, okay, come in. And even at that point, I don't think we were that worried. Like, I mean, I think I was thinking the worst case is that he's struggling a bit in there. Maybe they need to do a emergency cesarean or something.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that
Okay.
he died was just didn't cross my mind at all,
Yeah.
that can happen.
Jessica, really quick question. Were you doing anything like counting kicks or anything to kind of
No,
track his movement actually?
no, that's something I did want to mention, because yeah, in England it's not really promoted to count kicks. If
Mm-hmm.
anything, I think the last few years they've discouraged it because
Oh.
they thought it was unreliable or something. But so I wasn't counting kicks. They just always said to learn your baby's pattern, and if anything's abnormal, then come in. I feel guilty about this, but I was just really busy at work, and I never really learned Jacob's pattern. So that's something that I'll always feel guilty about and regret. But yeah, I just didn't really learn the pattern up to that point, and I was 31 weeks.
Yeah. It is still a bit of, I mean, like, it's hard to get their patterns sometimes, especially when, I
Mm.
mean, you have a really kind of an intense job, right? Like you're a dentist and you are hunched over and you're in, yeah. So I think it would be difficult. Um, I know this is not going to make you feel any better, but you should like, don't be so hard on yourself because I know that it's so, you had not felt his patterns and I mean, sorry, you had not felt him. You kinda did a few things to see if there would be anything that could help, with the movement. So did you guys go into the hospital
Yeah.
after?
So we went into hospital. We so yeah, for some reason Jake wasn't allowed in to the
Oh,
maternity assessment unit, even though he was allowed to all the other scans and stuff.
mm,
But he had to stay downstairs in the cafe. So I was just waiting. They knew that I came in with reduced movements, but they didn't seem worried. I was waiting for about 45 minutes or something. Um, I wasn't really worried. Um, I was actually on my phone just Googling um, Jacob's name and seeing what saint he represents or
oh,
something.
yeah,
It's yeah. And then I remember this song on the radio that was playing, and it was Angels by Robbie Williams.
mhm,
And I don't know why, but I think I got like a thought of, oh, imagine if I don't even remember, but for some reason I somehow thought Jacob was an angel. I don't know. I really don't
yeah,
remember what I was thinking, but that song will always, I just really vividly remember it and thinking, oh, that's weird that Angels is playing. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
Weird, like a sign or something.
yeah. It's yeah, funny how things, yeah, show
Yeah.
up when they do.
Um,
And go
yeah.
ahead.
So then the midwife, she checked my blood pressure. I gave a urine sample, and eventually they took me in to check the heartbeat with a Doppler. So the midwife couldn't find the heartbeat. I think she changed machines, still couldn't, got a more senior midwife. There was a trainee midwife there as well, and she was standing in the corner looking a bit bored. So I wasn't really thinking anything was wrong at this point. I
Right.
was just like, okay, yeah, machine doesn't work, and they're not too experienced, fine, get someone else. But still nothing. And then they took me to the ultrasound room,
Mhm.
and junior doctor was scanning me. Then a more senior doctor came in, also scanned me. And at this point, I was just lying there. Like, it almost feels like I, I wasn't there, because I'm normally one to, I'm anxious. I jump to worst case scenario. I'm asking all the questions. Is everything okay? And there I was just thinking everything's fine, just lying there. It feels almost like an out-of-body experience or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But eventually that senior doctor said, I'm sorry, but there's no heartbeat. And I don't think I quite understood what she was saying. It didn't register. I think I was just in shock. I didn't cry. I just didn't understand what
Right.
was going on.
Yeah. You're like, wait, how can this be? Because at this point in time, you're about, I'm assuming around
So I'm
31 weeks.
31 exactly 31 weeks that day I was.
And yeah, and especially since when you even said that, because they said the same thing of like, there's no heartbeat. It feels like, well, that's not associated with my child. I mean, like,
Yeah,
just,
it's like something totally different. Like, it's got
yeah,
nothing to do with it.
exactly. I was like, no,
Yeah.
so let's talk about my child now. Like, like you
Yeah.
just don't think about that. And then, but so you were in shock. And what happened after that? What did they say to you? Because like Jake's still downstairs in the cafe and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. So I think when I was walking to that ultrasound room, I think I did text him saying, oh, they can't find the heartbeat with the Doppler, so I'm just getting an ultrasound. So he was already apparently panicking downstairs, even though I actually wasn't at that point. And so the doctor said, do you want us to call someone? And I said, no, I'll just text my husband to come up. So he came up. So those few minutes, I was just sat there waiting for him, sort of in shock. And he came in, and I looked at him, sort of shook my head as if, bad news. And the doctors told him. So they left us for a few minutes. We hugged and cried. I was just in shock. I was teary, but I wasn't really crying. I just didn't understand. Just really wanted to know what's next. What now?
yeah,
What's the next stage? So yeah, we called the doctors back in, and then the consultant came and she confirmed everything, and she said, well, you've just had COVID, so we have seen pregnancy loss with COVID like this recently. And that's when I realized it probably was COVID that caused this.
mm,
But I mean, all the way until now, even when we were worried about the movements, I just forgot that I had COVID. It was so mild. The 10-day isolation was over. To me, COVID wasn't even a factor anymore. If I'd known it could have done this, I would have monitored his movements, every day of my isolation. I might have picked up earlier that he wasn't moving as much, or even come in that day that I thought maybe he's not kicking as strongly. So I'll always wonder about that, to be honest.
yeah, yeah. There's always all these what ifs that
Yeah.
come up. So, and because they didn't have any recommendations when you did have COVID about following up, right? They didn't kind of recommend
No,
anything.
nothing. No, I told the midwife, and she just said to stay hydrated, take a paracetamol if I have a fever, and to call an ambulance if I start having difficulty breathing. Because I think most of the news was saying that with COVID in pregnancy, it's the risk to the woman,
Right.
how a lot of them can end up in intensive care. So it was more the risk to me that we were all worried about. We didn't think that it could affect Jacob at all.
Yeah. So, did it hit you then when they said that?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's when we, that's when we started thinking it must have been COVID.
Um, so the consultant came in and started talking to you about the different options. So
Yeah.
what did you guys end up
So
deciding to do?
they recommended having a natural birth. So I just said, okay, if that's they know best, right? And they gave me a pill to start the process and said that I'd have to come back in 2 days to give birth. They took some bloods, and we were just allowed to go home. We didn't really get much information about what the birth will look like. I hadn't had any antenatal classes yet, so I had no idea what to expect. To be honest, I was at that point I was terrified of the birth. That's all I was then thinking about, like getting through that. I was just imagining some horror show giving birth to like death and blackness, and I just that was terrifying, those
Yeah.
few days before the birth.
I don't know, is that pretty typical that they would be like, "Okay, your body's not quite ready yet. Here's a pill. Head home. You will that's the option right now. You're not gonna be able to start I mean, you're not gonna be able to
Yeah,
start,
I
labor."
just yeah, I didn't have any other options.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they didn't say that you can stay here now and induce labor now. It was just, I guess, the protocol maybe in that hospital. I'm not sure. This pill was meant to start the induction or something. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys head home, and how are you guys feeling? Like, are you just 'cause I
Well,
yeah.
I guess we couldn't believe it. I was in shock. My brain was just going into sort of like, right, what do I need to do then? So I'm gonna have to go back to work, because actually the next day I was meant to have my last day before maternity. So I was just thinking, okay, so I'll have to go back to work. So I need to email work. And I was just going into sort of organizational overdrive mode. But we got home, we called our parents, we told them all. My parents live nearby, only half an hour away, so they came over straight away, and we just all cried and hugged, and like we no one could believe it, what's happened,
Yeah.
it's just such a shock for the family.
Yeah. It's so yeah, you just can't understand. You're like, "What? No." So, is your when you're at home, what does your is your body starting to
Yeah, so
kick into
I
labor?
think the cramps started around that evening. So I started taking some paracetamol. Um, uh, we just sort of went to bed, tried to sleep. I couldn't sleep that night at all. I had to get up. I wrote in my diary for a bit. I then started actually Googling what happens when your baby dies inside you. And that's when I learned that I was having a stillborn. So I found this charity, I think it's only UK based, it's called Tommy's.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm,
yeah,
I've
it's
heard
got
of them.
they do lots of research into pregnancy loss and have just so much information
Mhm.
online. So I was just reading all about stillbirth and what happens, and and that's, I think, when it all hit me. That's when I realized that my baby has died, and he's gonna come in 2 days, and I'm gonna meet him, and I need to just make as many memories with him as I can. So yeah, that website, I'm so happy that I came across that website rather than some dark hole on the internet.
Yeah.
But it just, yeah, all the information about how to make memories with your baby, and I saw all the pictures of parents with their baby. So it just really hit home what was happening, and yeah, it was I didn't sleep at all that night.
Oh, yeah. Well, you just realize and I'm not sure what kind of articles you read and stuff about making memories, but you realize, like, in that time when you're like, I get to spend all of my time with my child in this, like, whatever, however many days that or day or hours that you get, and that's supposed to be your lifetime of memories with your
Yeah,
son, and it's really crummy.
yeah.
I'm glad that you found Tommy's because I think it is an awesome organization, and, what were some of the things that you wanted to do or that you were like, "I'd like this to happen when we do go deliver him?"
Yeah, so I went through it all with Jake after the next day, and we discussed how you can sort of wash your baby, you can put a diaper on, dress them. They organize like charity photographers to come and take
Mhm.
photos of the baby. So I would have done probably all of that
Yeah.
to make as many memories as possible. I think Jake was struggling a bit. He thought it might be too much, that we shouldn't do too much. So he agreed that we should see him and stuff like that, but maybe not get a photographer. So we decided not to do that. But otherwise, I saw that we could also take hand and footprints. So I already had kits bought for that
Oh, good.
already for the birth. I think I bought them back when I was 12 weeks pregnant, actually. So I made sure I packed all that into the hospital bag, as well as a little baby grow to dress him in, because we hadn't had a baby shower yet, so we didn't really have many things. And we also had just bought a house, so we didn't have any baby stuff yet.
Right.
So just 2 baby grows. So I picked the one that was a bit smaller.
Yeah.
Took that in with me, and also a little blanket that was personalized. And that was from Jacob's auntie, so Jake's sister. So we took that in to wrap him up in that.
Oh, that's great. So you went to did they basically say come back in 2 days and see where you're at, or okay.
Yeah, they said I might start bleeding, and if it's too much, I can come in sooner.
Yeah.
But otherwise, just to come in 2 days.
Okay.
So I actually did wake up. So I finally managed to fall asleep at like 8 a.m. the next day,
Oh,
and I was woken up to bleeding after a few hours, and that kind of really shocked me, and I screamed and didn't. Yeah, that was just a real shock. But Jake came in and was like, no, that's what they said is normal. So yeah, the pains were getting worse throughout the day. We just went for a little walk that day, and to the shop to buy some pads that I'd need after the birth, and went to my parents for dinner that evening.
oh. I can't imagine like how somber everything was, because
Uh,
I like yeah.
It's like an out of body experience, such a blur. I
Yeah.
just, yeah,
You don't know what's happening. Okay,
no,
so you guys go in the next day,
yeah.
check in.
So we go in the afternoon. We called them up just to make sure they're ready for us. And yeah, we went in, got there about 2 to 3 p.m. on the 14th of December. And we, at first, the reception didn't know why we're there. They were asking,
Yeah.
like, so how many weeks are you? I said 31 weeks. I'm here to give birth. And it was a bit stressful because they didn't know why we were there. But eventually they called to the midwives, and I think they had our name written down. So they took us into the room. We settled in, had a midwife and a doctor and a bereavement midwife come to see us to explain a little bit more. And around 5 p.m., they gave me the pessary. So that was, I don't know, the next stage of induction or
Yeah,
something like
okay.
that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
Um,
was that an IV drug or
no, it was pessary, so a tablet inserted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And yeah, they said I'd need a new one every 3 hours, that they can't predict how long labor will be. So yeah, we just were just chilling in the room. I was reading a bit, trying to walk around, thinking that might help labor.
Mhm.
I heard it could,
Mhm. Yeah.
walking around. And it got to about 8 p.m. So when the second pessary was due, it started getting really, the cramps were regular and getting a lot more painful. So that's when I asked for gas and air. They gave me the second pessary. They did a sweep. Is that the same thing in America?
I am not totally sure. Probably not.
Um, where they I don't know, they do something inside.
Okay. And okay,
Yeah,
maybe just maybe break the water or
yeah,
something of that
trying
nature.
to,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, it was getting really painful. So I asked for the morphine drip to be connected. But the midwife said if I'm planning an epidural anyway,
Mm.
to just have that done because the anaesthetist is here. And so I agreed. And they were setting that up. it didn't work. So
Oh,
it was yeah, that next hour or so was really painful, getting worse and worse. Around 9 p.m. my parents came. So we had this whole room to ourselves and I could have as many people as I wanted. So that was nice. So they arrived around 9. That was in the middle of all the epidural craziness.
yeah.
And it wasn't working. And I think they gave me a shot of morphine because that then made me really drowsy and I don't
Mm.
quite remember fully the sequence of events.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
um,
course.
but eventually the painkillers kicked in and around I don't know, it all happened so quickly. I guess at 9:30 the painkiller started working and I was falling asleep between contractions. Um, Suddenly I felt my waters break.
Oh.
Then they were moving me to a birthing bed. Then suddenly I thought I felt something. And the midwife just said, no, it'll be just more waters. And she looked down and was like, no, your baby's coming. So it just all happened so fast. He was born at 10:33 p.m.
Oh, wow. Like an
Just,
hour later.
yeah, like, and I think just one push, he just slid out so easily.
Yeah.
And I'll always think that Jacob just wanted to help me along, not
Yeah.
make it
Oh.
too hard for me.
What were your uh, post-birth plans and or preferences? It sounds like you had a bereavement midwife who did help
Yeah,
you through that. Did you guys talk about what you guys wanted to happen after he was born?
yeah. So I guess they gave us a little booklet when we got to the hospital, and it had a few ideas of the making memories and stuff like that, which I'd already read on the Tommy's website.
Mhm.
But we didn't want to look at him straight away. We wanted to ask the midwife just to check him over to see if he'd deteriorated or anything, because I'd read that could happen. But still, when he was born, I still glanced down and I
Yeah.
just saw him all curled up in a little ball. My mum said, "Don't look," but I did. And I mean, he just looked normal. So we asked the midwife, "Is he okay?" And she said he's perfect. So she wrapped him up in our little blanket and I got to hold him then.
Oh. What did he look like?
Well, he was was covered in the white stuff,
Yep. Mhm.
burnt, that waxy stuff. So
Mhm.
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
I was like, is that normal?
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I've since read that that's normal and it
Mhm.
usually washes off by the time they're full term. So I just at that point I was just holding Jacob. I couldn't believe he was a baby, that he was my baby. I didn't know what to say. I was just in awe of him, just, staring at him,
Yeah.
not believing it.
Yeah. Not believing it.
Mm,
Your parents were there and
yes,
Jake was
yeah.
there and anybody else was there?
No, just my parents and Jake. Looking back, I guess I wouldn't have minded Jake's parents as well,
Yeah.
just to have as many family members see him, hold him, but I guess you don't think of that back
Yeah.
then. Yeah, you can only say think later what you could have done.
Yeah, exactly.
But my
And
mum cut the cord.
oh, she did. Is that what
Yes.
did you ask her to do that or is that
Well, the midwife asked Jake and he didn't want to, so my mum said, I'll do it.
oh, there you go. Um, and so you were holding him, did
Then
Jake hold him? Did everybody get a chance to
no,
hold him?
so Jake didn't want to hold him. I think it was just too hard for him, and he thought it'd be harder if he held him. So he didn't want to hold him.
Yeah.
We have since discussed it, and he doesn't regret it. He thinks it would have been a lot harder if he had held him. Maybe one day he'll regret it, but for now he's happy with his decision.
Okay.
My
Um,
parents were there and held him though that first night.
really?
Yeah.
And were you referring to him as Jacob the entire time, by the way, like even before he was born?
No, only me and Jake were.
Oh, okay.
But then the midwife said, "So does he have a name?" And we kind of looked at each other and both said Jacob.
Oh, great.
He was always going to be Jacob.
Yeah. How big was he? How big did he end up being?
So he was so £3 6 ounces and 45 centimeters in length.
Wonderful.
So and his feet were the size of a 34-week-old, apparently.
He's got
It
big feet.
was only what 31 weeks, but he was a 34-week foot size. And he also had very long hands.
Oh,
So his
really?
fingers were longer than his palm.
Oh.
And that's I kind of have big hands, so I think he had my hands.
Oh. Oh, that's so fun. Were you able to look him over then? So you were able to see his feet and his hands?
Yeah. So he was briefly wrapped in the blanket, but then the midwife took him away to weigh him and stuff, and she said, "Oh, he's done a little poo,"
Oh,
and I for a split second thought, "Oh, is he alive?" But he wasn't, and
yeah.
the midwife said, "Do you want to bathe him or put a diaper on him?" So I said, "Let's put a diaper on him." It was the first time I'd ever put a diaper on a baby, so I was really nervous
Yeah.
and also scared that I was going to damage him because he felt so fragile, his little hands and feet were wrinkly from the water, the amniotic
Mhm.
fluid. He felt like I could really damage him. But the midwife was so lovely. She just was, talking me through it, just treating Jacob like an alive little baby, and it
Oh.
just really helped because I guess in that moment I didn't know what to say, how to act. So it really helped having someone there to just be like, "Oh, gorgeous boy," and everything,
Oh,
you know.
that's so wonderful. Like I love hearing when there are healthcare providers
Yeah,
that are so compassionate and kind to our family members.
yeah.
So you put on the diaper, which was probably tiny, huh?
Yeah. It was tiny. And then I dressed him in the little baby grow
Mm.
and yeah, just wrapped him up in his blanket and I was just holding him for like 2 hours, just staring at him. And I think because the morphine was making me drowsy, I was just staring at him and falling asleep. And around midnight, I think after midnight, my parents were saying they were going to go, but I didn't want them to go because I was scared I was going to drop him.
Oh, yeah.
um, but yeah, they left for the night, and the midwife asked if we wanted Jacob in the room in a cold cot, but Jake thought it'd be best if he was taken away for the night,
Mm.
um, and we could see him again the next day. So we got a few hours sleep then,
Oh, that's
um,
good.
and yeah, and then we got to see him again the next day and have a good few hours with him again. So my parents came back in the morning.
Mm.
We were waiting. We wanted to see a Catholic priest because I was raised Catholic,
Mhm.
and we were waiting around for that till about midday. And yeah, we just got to spend more time with him. That's when we took the hand and footprints and
Oh, good.
these little clay molds as well of the,
Mhm.
the feet. Just lots of photos and videos and yeah, I look back on my stay in hospital as not just a horrible day, but actually the best day because I got to meet Jacob and spend time with him.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's this like it was horrible and awesome too. Like
Yeah.
there's such a mix of emotions that happen. So you guys, it seems like you did a lot with him though. I'm glad that you were able
Mm,
to spend that time.
yeah.
Um, so the priest came then around midday. Did you guys do anything special with when he
Um,
came?
so he just did a little blessing and a prayer.
Mhm.
But actually when Jacob was born, my mum did actually bring some holy water and she baptized him.
Mm.
My whole family's quite religious, so I think her sister just suggested it, which was
Yeah.
really nice. And then when the priest came, a blessing, and I mean, it was emotional, but it was lovely.
Yeah. Good.
And then we were just waiting around for a few hours until they sorted all my discharge medication and paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I could have stayed longer. Looking
Yeah.
back, I would have stayed the whole day. I don't know. No one really said that I could stay another
Yeah.
night or anything. But I do think my family would have said it's probably time to go
Yeah.
if I wanted to stay longer, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I mean, just looking back, I wish I had spent more time with him.
Yeah. We all
Much as
kind of
possible.
have that. I know. I always like, yeah, I think that too. I wish I had more time with him. So, I guess I don't know this. Was there any sort of did so they didn't tell you a time frame that you could have Jacob? Was there a
No,
hospital policy or anything? They just hadn't mentioned anything.
no, they hadn't, no.
Okay.
So I was just expecting once, yeah, all the discharge is done, paperwork is done, I just need to go.
Oh, yeah. I don't once again don't know the procedures and policies of the hospital there. But do they start talking to you about how what will happen to Jacob after you leave? I mean, did they start like, do you want to bury him? Do you want to cremate him? I mean, did they go through all of
Yeah,
that too?
yeah. So the bereavement midwife actually went through that with us. So she did that on the day before,
Mm-hmm.
well, the day he was born, just before he was born. She said, "Here's a booklet with everything. We will go through paperwork the next day. So just have a little think. Do you want the hospital to take care of everything, or will we want to? Do we want burial or cremation?" So we went through all the paperwork that next day with the bereavement
Mm-hmm.
midwife. So we decided we wanted to do our own service, and
Mm-hmm.
we also decided we wanted burial as well.
Okay. Wonderful. And then so you I don't this is my worst I hate this part of but when you guys left or when you had to give Jacob up, how did that look when that time came?
Um, well, the midwife just came in. We placed him. I placed him back into his cold cot, and she just wheeled him away.
That's it. I don't know,
Yeah,
that's
but he did stay in the mortuary of the hospital, so I was able to actually visit him as
oh
much as
good.
I wanted actually. Um, Again, I wish I saw him more, but I decided not to go too much because I was scared of just um almost getting used to having a dead baby and then it being too hard to let go
Yeah.
eventually. So I went twice to the mortuary. So 10 days later, it was on Christmas Eve,
Oh.
Jake's mum came down for Christmas and we took her. So it was me, my dad, and Jake's mum that went to see Jacob.
Mm,
As Jake and my mum, they wanted to remember him how he was when he was born,
yeah.
which I get is fair enough. I mean, seeing him at the mortuary, he had changed, but it was an initial shock. Um, but I now look back at those pictures and I'm like, he's my son. It's fine,
Yeah.
I still love them pictures. They're
Yeah.
all extra memories for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then you got to see him a second time after that.
Yeah. And after that, on the 30th of December, I went one last time with my dad. And that's when I decided that was going to be the last time. And I wrote him a letter from me and Daddy, and just made sure he had everything in his bassinet that he would be buried with.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, that was when I said goodbye to him.
Mm. Is burial did you guys get to choose the location, and
Yeah.
how does that work?
So we contacted a funeral director, and well, first of all, the one at the time where we were living, we contacted the nearest one, and they were saying that a few cemeteries were full or something.
Mm-hmm.
So then the area where we were moving to, I realized there was a cemetery there. So I called them up, and they said they had a little baby garden
Mm.
for these sort of babies. And so we contacted a funeral director that was just across the road from the cemetery, and just arranged it through that. And in England, baby funerals are actually free, so
Oh,
we didn't have to pay for the burial, just flowers or any extras like that
right,
that we wanted.
right. Uh,
Yeah.
so did you guys want to have a little kind of a service or a memorial, in order to kind of honor Jacob's life? And
Yeah, so yeah, I straight away wanted a funeral type thing. We contacted our priest, so he's a Polish priest
mm-hmm.
where I've always gone to as a child growing up. And they they said that because he was born, so because he died inside me, that he didn't need like a big mass or a funeral,
Mm.
like a proper mass type funeral, um, which confused me a little because I still wanted one.
Yeah.
But we ended up having the service at the cemetery chapel, so it wasn't in the church, and just the Catholic priest came and did the service for us.
Okay.
But it actually worked out better because I could choose the music and the poems and everything, the readings. Whereas in the Catholic Church, or in the Polish one, they're more strict. They wouldn't have allowed
Oh,
everything
okay.
that I wanted.
Oh, good. Well, yeah,
But
so
it
that
worked
it
out.
did work out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we only had closest family there. So
Okay.
me, my parents, Jake, his parents, sister, and my cousin, who's actually here in London too.
Wonderful. And that
So yeah,
sounded like
close.
it turned out really nicely, though. Like you were able to
Yeah,
plan what you wanted.
yeah. The funeral was about 6 weeks after Jacob was born. So I spent most of January just planning it, reading all the poems that I could find and choosing the best one, listening to all the music, choosing the best ones, and making the order of service. It was just my way of doing something for Jacob, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, I'm not gonna have a chance to do, yeah, plan a birthday party or
exactly.
plan anything else.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that, I hope this is the case, but you do have time off. This was, you had
Mm,
a fair amount of maternity leave, or like I said, I'm not sure how it works in the UK or what is allowed, and if they consider this a leave that is they, because in the United States we're not that like, unfortunately it's pretty rough, for women that deliver babies, and they have to go a stillborn baby and they have to go back to work kind of quickly, and you're like,
yeah,
ah,
that's horrible. In England, if you give birth to a stillborn, so after 24 weeks, you get the full maternity that you were entitled to.
mm-hmm,
So so I didn't know at the time how long I would take off, but I took off the full 6 months
mm,
paid maternity that I could get with work. So yeah, I can't imagine going back to work sooner. I did actually have to go in a few times. So actually the first time 3 weeks after Jacob was born, because I'm a dentist, I had to just go in to see the odd patient. I
oh
couldn't transfer care to someone else.
yeah.
So I had to go in, and yeah, I can't believe I did.
I know. I was like, "Oh my goodness," because I'm sure that everybody had questions, and that yeah, going back to work after your loss is so rough. Oh.
Yeah, that early on I couldn't speak about it. So I told the manager that to ask people not to ask me anything. Um yeah, I just needed to go in, do what needs to be done,
And
and
then
leave.
leave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But since I've been more open and want people to ask questions, and I want to
yeah,
talk about Jacob as much
yeah,
as possible.
yeah. I know that's kind of the key. And so, Is there anything else you wanted to tell us about the memorial service that I don't want to skim over that too much because I'm like I always think that those are so special and the time is it's kind of sometimes the last time you're gonna like see him or
Yeah.
be with him and talk about him in such an open fashion. Um, Anything else that you wanted to touch on with his memorial, his funeral?
So he, so well, firstly, the music I chose. So it's called Canon in the D by
Mm-hmm.
Pachel Bell. It's actually more of a wedding song, but when I was googling songs, it said that it was also used as a funeral song, and I always wanted that for my wedding, but the church organs were so old that they couldn't play
Oh,
that. So when I came across it, I thought, oh my gosh, I couldn't have it for my wedding. So now Jacob has it for his funeral. So it
yeah.
felt like it was sort of meant to be in a way.
Yeah.
Um, and then we had a lovely poem that I found called Butterfly that Jake's sister read.
hmm
Then we wrote a little letter to Jacob that Jake's dad read. And actually, I prepared a poem that I found online that I didn't know if I would manage to read it or not. But I saved it to read by the burial site, and I managed to read it. So I was very proud that I managed, even though
Yeah.
I cried. But
Yeah.
it's all right. I did it. So I'm proud I did it for Jacob.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And he is buried in the cemetery that's kind of close to your home then.
Yeah, it's only a 5 minute drive or a 35-minute walk. So we go for lots of walks there. And it's a really nice little place. I have since had a few regrets about it. I
Mm.
guess everyone has a few, but I realized, you know, that I don't know if well, no, I won't be able to be buried there with him.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I had a bit of a mini panic a few weeks later, and I was contacting the cemetery
Yeah.
and what can be done in the future. And they said I could be potentially cremated and placed there, or if I wanted to, I could move him one day.
Oh,
Because
okay.
again, I realized that we might not stay here forever,
Yeah.
and that was all a realization that happened after. I wish someone could have really discussed that with us a bit more, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
because you just don't know.
you don't, you
Yeah,
don't think of all these things at the
no.
time.
And you are young and you're like, I just had to plan a funeral but that's like
Yeah.
you're kind of putting down roots there too, in a
I
sense.
know, I can't imagine being far away from him now. So we might not actually want to move that far now
Yeah.
because Jacob's there. But at least we have the option if we really wanted to move and then we buy sort of a family grave, we could always move him. So that's really just settled me a little bit.
Yes, for sure. That is
I
for
had
sure.
to. Yeah.
Oh, just a side note. Is there like a little grave marker or a gravestone that is there? Did you guys
Yes.
get to plan that or is it just a
Yeah. So
generic one?
it's a cross for now, a wooden cross.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming up to a year, so we could get a headstone. So I will want to design my own headstone and,
Yes.
and make it lovely.
Yes.
But for now it's got lots of flowers. I really enjoy doing the grave up and changing it every few months. And yeah, I've made a friend in the baby garden, another lost mum, and
Yeah.
we just want to make the area really pretty, lots of flowers and stuff like that.
That is
And yeah,
so cool.
we love going there, just sitting with our babies and chatting with a cup of tea.
Yeah. That sounds really delightful. And I've met some wonderful people just by running it into them at the baby
Yeah.
that they call it baby land in our in our
Oh,
cemetery. So,
yeah.
um and I know that you mentioned earlier that they just talking about the cause of his his death. So they do think it's pretty likely that it was from COVID that
Yes.
he struggled. And so
Yeah.
did they give you an official or did you guys have an autopsy or anything done?
Yes. Yes. We had a full post-mortem or
Mm,
autopsy,
yes.
and yeah, we just wanted to know exactly what happened.
Right.
And the results came back about 8 weeks later, and it came back with a placental immune condition, and
Oh.
that was what killed Jacob. Well, that's what prevented the blood flow to Jacob. This
Oh.
immune reaction and the blood clots. And in the autopsy report, they said that COVID has been linked to this immune condition. It's called chronic histiocytic intervirusitis, or CHI for short.
Uh-huh.
But I guess when we went for that post-mortem appointment with the doctors, they were really concentrating on that inflammatory placental condition. And I mean, they didn't know much about COVID and how it affects it yet. So
Right.
they were just concentrating on this immune condition, and actually scared us quite a bit, because they said it's got a high chance of recurrence.
Oh.
Future pregnancies, yeah, like we'd have to have lots of medication and stuff like that. I mean, we left the post-mortem appointment really devastated. They even went into talking about surrogacy, that if it recurs, we might never be able to have a child and stuff
Oh.
like that. So it was really horrible. But I had contacted a professor in another hospital in London who does research around CHI and
Mhm.
COVID, and we saw him. He arranged more tests on the placenta and actually found COVID in the placenta.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and he said, we have seen more and more cases like this where COVID gets into the placenta, which in itself is really rare. Apparently, less than 1% of cases with
Mhm.
COVID cross the placenta. And then once it's in there, it was my body sort of attacking the COVID in the placenta,
Oh,
and it caused a blockage for Jacob. But he's confident that it won't happen again, because it was caused by COVID. But they can't guarantee it, obviously.
obviously, yeah, there's just we're learning so much more every
Yeah.
day about COVID, so, I'm so sorry. Yeah, COVID has been devastating on so many levels, and so to hear that kind of like, "Oh, it was in the placenta, and it was my body that was," I
Yeah. It's so rare that you don't think such a rare thing would happen to you, and yeah, it did. Yeah, horrible.
yeah, it is horrible. Jessica, it's been so lovely to hear Jacob's story and to I I would be so I'm so sad and for you and for your loss but is there anything you would like to leave us with about Jacob that you wanted us to tell us about before we
Uh,
close up?
yeah, I guess just that he's like forever my firstborn baby, cherished and so loved. And I want people just to remember him forever and talk about him with me, because I just want him remembered as a person. He'll be central in our lives forever, and we'll always celebrate him and include him in every celebration.
That is wonderful. Yep. They're a part of us, aren't they?
They are forever.
Forever. Jessica, thank you so, so much again.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share Jacob's story.
Yes.